Dr. Martin, there's consensus among our clients that we're a technology-driven industry when we speak of renewable energy and clean energy. And by definition, that means you have a pretty cool job because you're sitting sort of right at the top of, right at the front end of innovation at the technological, on the technological side. So I wanted to take the opportunity to ask you about whether you can give us any examples of technology that even somebody in your position goes gee whiz about.
Oh yeah, I mean, I am really fortunate. I probably have one of the best jobs in innovation, right? We've launched since our beginning 362 projects in all kinds of areas, from advanced carbon capture technology, where if you think about, the guys who actually worry about supersonic jet engines and spinning the air in order to get that thrust, they worry a lot about how not to have particles in the air solidify out and blow up that engine. So if you think about the whole idea of carbon capture and turn it on its head, couldn't those same guys come up with a way to actually condense the CO2 out of a flue gas stream? And sure enough, we funded them, and they've done a small-scale demonstration that's now being scaled to the next level of exactly that. And so it's right, that's a little gee whiz, right? It allows you to have a carbon capture technology with no chemicals and potentially very, very few moving parts.
Well, I note that you did, as an example, you chose to talk about carbon capture technology, and carbon capture lies at the center of the administration's proposal and intentions to continue using coal to generate electricity in the U.S. market. Do you believe that that we'll see more carbon capture types of projects in the pipeline?
Oh, absolutely. We're seeing some real innovation from things that we funded ourselves several years ago that are going to be scaled to the next level to see if they're really real. We're seeing some very innovative ideas come in the door even today. So I think people are continuing to, rightfully focus on it as an important area.
Thank you. Now, looking ahead, and I guess we're even getting a little bit more speculative right now, but the breakthroughs that we've seen over the last few years have been really large strides in efficiency gains in generation technologies such as solar and wind. What's on the horizon? Is it more? Can we expect to see continued fine-tuning and further efficiency development in those technologies, and is it also possible that we can expect new generation technologies that would qualify as renewable?
Yes, I think the answer is both, right? I think a very significant amount of research and scale up needs to be done to continue to drive the existing technologies down the learning curves, right? I mean, that's the big advantage of having full-scale systems installed, is you understand what are the constraints, what are the pinch points. So yes, there's great work going on. Parts of DOE with the industry are working on that. But we at ARPA-E are equally excited about the whole idea that there's new ways of framing these challenges that are going to bring new and better ideas to the problem that'll allow us to go beyond today's learning curves. Because I think the only thing we know about energy is that in the future it'll be different than we think it is today, and so we need to develop options. And those options could be, how do we make solar even more dispatchable than it is today? How do we think of wind turbines that don't have any constraints when you get them into high wind situations? I think many of these technologies, and not only the generation, but then once you've generated it, how do you distribute and use that energy, right? Can we really route the grid? That's one of my favorite questions, right? Why can't we route the grid? And the hardware and the software, right? Power flow control, ideas of microgridding and macro gridding, and the whole idea of resiliency in the grid. Wouldn't it be better if the grid itself could actually understand where and how it's failing and self-correct?
And tell me, what is ARPA-E doing specifically in that area right now? We talked about some upstream technologies, generation technologies. What about the grid? Are there any current activities that you can talk about?
We've got a number of things going on. We've got everything from technologies like software that literally would do the really hard math problem to help you understand what's going on dynamically inside the grid, and as there are issues, be able to allow the grid operator to sense and correct on those, but also to reroute the grid. We also have hardware solutions looking at exactly that, so just distributed power flow control. There's an example, one company, Smart Wire Grid, has a technology, if you think about it, basically like clamping a magnet on the high voltage wire. so that the wire itself, right, the wires are dumb. The electrons will go to the path of least resistance. But if the wire itself thought it was congested because of the presence of this device, it would push the power to another source. So you could decongest the grid to get more power out of it, or if there was an outage, you could isolate the outage.
Note to file, we need a magnet session next year, don't we?
Yes.
Last question, what does someone do if they're in the industry, or maybe a new arrival in the industry, and they are interested in maybe some backing from RPE or working with RPE? What's the pathway for that?
Well, there's a number of pathways. Our model is very much like DARPA, and so we have program directors come in for a period of 3 years, and they'll bring in a big idea, a way they want to solve a problem, and they'll put a funding opportunity on the street. And when they do that, you can apply to those very specific funding opportunities around routing the grid or carbon capture or advanced fuels. But then every couple years we have an open solicitation where we invite anyone to submit their best ideas. And so there we can fund one-off ideas and really see what the community is telling us. So I'd urge people to look at our website, sign up for our newsletter, and talk to our program directors as they're out in the field, because we are open and always looking for the next really great idea.
Excellent. Well, Dr. Martin, I want to say thank you for joining us, giving us the time, and giving us a little bit of insight into what you're doing at RPE.
Thank you very much.